Hey guys, well my parts finally arrived. I'm happy to see them considering the current climate in the world at the moment. So they turned up yesterday. So my remaining 3 exhaust pipe seals and of course the intake manifold gaskets. Cool. Okay, so they are slightly different. On one side is completely flat, one side is slightly raised and has a bit of a fold to it. Not sure if they are side specific. I will look into that before I put them on and make sure that I'm putting them on correctly. I'll also be using this here, so ultra copper, so maximum temperature gasket maker, so a little bit of that on either side. You need to use the copper one or equivalent. It's not just your normal silicon or anything like that. I've got all my new bolts for, and these are not normal washers. They are exhaust washers. So, nuts. New washers as well. So I've got all my new bolts, and I've got my 2 brand new bolts to go onto the CV joints. So I currently have all the parts to finish the car. This is my little checklist to go through just for the final things. And of course I'll be doing a degrease of the engine right at the end. I won't be filming that, but that'll be right at the end when I'm happy that there are no leaks and there's nothing to fix. And normally when you're moving an engine or taking an engine out, putting an engine in, you're always going to have teething issues. So I will be running the engine in place on the stands for quite some time, bringing it up to temperature, making sure I check the oils and all that correctly, and really running it well before I'm satisfied to even put the wheels on and drop it down and take it for a test run. I'll be sort of bench testing as such, but in car, the engine, looking for leaks, fuel leaks, all that kind of stuff. But when I get to that, I'll film the startup. But for now, I'm going to work on the CV joints first. I'm going to put the bolts in where they're missing and torque them up on both sides. And then I'm going to move to the installing the headers. So I'll be back in a sec. Okay guys, here's the CV joint, my 2 bolts. The that like double washer is on the boot side, and sometimes you have to push the boot in a little bit to have that pass the boot. A little bit fiddly. There we go. And then bolts through. Once again, just manipulating that boot a little bit to allow the bolts to come through. And then the nuts on the end, which is not easy because I have a camera right here. Try that again. You don't need a spanner and an Allen key socket for this. You just need an Allen key socket because the as you'll probably see on your own if you're doing your own, the nut is kind of held in place by the body of the CV joint itself. Okay, so that's in there. So now I'm going to go get my torque wrench, set my torque wrench up, make sure my handbrake's on so it holds my wheels, and I may even put it into gear, and I'm going to set my torque wrench to, it's 60 to 65 foot-pound. I'm probably going to go 60, see how it feels, and then if it feels good, I'll leave it at that. If not, I might even go up to 65, but as long as you're around 60, between 60 and 65 foot-pound, you're going to be fine. Okay, I'll get my torque wrench and be back. Okay, here we are. So I've just done them up a little bit, but I haven't torqued them. I'm only, like I said, I'm only going to film one. So we're looking at 60 foot-pound, 62.5 is what I'm doing, and it's pretty full on. There we go, and snap. That's what we want to hear, and that's quite a lot, especially with a little torque wrench that I have here. Alright, so I'll go through and I'll do all of them. So I've done them up tight, and then I'm just basically going to pull them down to, there we go, to their correct torque. So it might be an idea to step them even, you know, go to 40 and then go that bit further. But 60 is pretty full on for these as far as I'm concerned. But you know, you don't want them coming loose. So I'm going to go around and do all of them, both sides, and then you'll see me come back and we'll start looking at putting the headers back on. Hey guys, I'm about to fit the manifold, and I was wondering, are these one-way specific? I guess they are, but you can't really get them wrong from what I can tell, because they really only fit onto your headers one particular way. What I've noticed is there's a seal on them, or actually, geez, lack of a better word, just there's a seam. Okay, I've looked at an old one, and the seam is against the engine head, so seamless for the header, seam side, head, but like I said, you can't really get them wrong. So I'm going to put a bit of my goo on them, and then I'm going to put them onto the head. However, I'm going to have my exhaust pretty much ready to go, my headers pretty much ready to go to be put on. So, you know, these aren't going to be sitting for too long without this, should I say, without the headers going on. So this stuff here doesn't have too much time to be sitting there on its own. I don't, you know, you're going to have time to put it on. It's not like this is going to dry instantly like super glue or anything like that. But yeah, it's just good to be ready to go. And then with gaskets and so on, you get gasket goo, so then you're ready. Goo goes on, and then it's apply whatever you're putting on as soon as possible. Handy to keep your old parts. I have a whole bag, you can see it there, that's got every single part that I've replaced on my Ferrari in 12 years, apart from clutch. That's in a separate bag. But you know, cam belts, just everything, old leads. I mean, you never know when you might need, you know, spare stuff. So yeah, hang on to it. And it's also proof if you ever go to sell the car, even pedal rubbers. If you ever go to sell the car, you know, and they want proof that these things have been replaced, well, you've got proof of it. So belts, everything, every nut and bolt, literally, old gaskets. It's a good thing to do. Okay, well, I'm going to get under the car and start working on the manifold. Okay, so I've just cleaned the surfaces again where the gaskets are going to sit on the head, and removed the nuts They're just there. So now I'm going to put the gasket goo on and then apply each gasket to the head and then present the exhaust manifold to it. Alright. Okay. Gasket goo. Got the seal there. Get a bit coming through. So I won't make you watch me do all of these. I'll just do one and then I'll do the rest, and then I'll get back to you when I'm ready to fit them on. So there we go. Just making sure you've got no gaps in there. Don't need a lot. That's heaps. Do that for each one. And if you're ever using silicons or anything along these lines, if your finger is wet with water, it will rub, it will slide along the silicon a lot nicer than if your finger's dry. It's a good tip, but don't get into the habit of sticking your finger in your mouth, and you'll only ever do that once, I assure you. Alright, I'll do the rest of these and then I'll come back. Okay, I am ready to present gaskets up. Trying to be as accurate as possible so I don't get gasket goo everywhere. They really have to go on quite square. There's one, and it's just the same for the other three. Try and get them on as square as possible, and then push them up and just stick them on. Alright, now of course there's going to be some gasket goo on the manifold itself. That's the next step. Okay, headers are done, so gasket goo on there on each of them. Okay, so we're about to present them up. Okay, I hope this doesn't look too awkward or uncoordinated. I am on my back. So, getting them in the offset is pretty fiddly. A little bit tricky to get them in. Okay. They don't make anything easy, Ferrari. Might be another way to put these in. And I need to find it. Okay, I found from the Mondial, not sure about 328s and 308s, but on the Mondial, you're going to come behind the frame in front of me, you're going to come underneath it. Okay, and then come up and over, and I'm holding the camera in my hand like this, so it'll come up and over like that. Okay, all right. Sorry about the camera work. Very awkward thing to do. I hope that's still in shot. Now I'm hoping, hooked up at the bottom here, I'm hoping I can get in now. This is a lot more fiddly than it might appear on the outset, because things don't want to work in your favour. There we go. All right, we're on. So now I just need to put at least 2 nuts on and screw this one up. And this one. That's just to hold it in place, that's all. Okay, now these might have been 13mm nuts when they came off, but these ones that I'm putting on are 12mm, and they're pretty fiddly to get on, so I'm not going to make you watch me struggle getting these nuts on. I will get them all on, and then when I'm ready to torque it down, I'll get back to you. Okay, so that's fitted. It's not much fun to fit, I assure you. Some fiddly bolts, should I say nuts, in there to get to. Just got to do the best you can. You can get access, it's just a pain. So that's in, all secured. I did have a check of the manual and I could not find torques for these nuts to go on the studs for on the flange of the headers. So I've sort of done them up to around what I would consider between 40 and 55, so that sort of range, foot-pound, so fairly tight. They're not necessarily, there's no oil or anything obviously going through them, so it's just the compression coming out, so exhaust compression, so it's I think that should be fine. If anybody knows any difference, by all means comment. I'm always open to comments. Yeah, so anyway, that's on, so I'm going to continue doing the rest of the exhaust. Hopefully it all still fits into place neatly. Can't see why not, unless I've bent something really bad when I was moving the engine, but let's hope I haven't. The tools I used to do the nuts on the header was a universal joint, long socket, small socket. That's what I used. You could even probably use 2 long ones, make it even easier, but you're definitely going to need that. And the ones that you can't get to, there's only 2 that I had to use this. And like I said, my nuts are 12mm. Yours might be 13. You might have bigger nuts than me. I'm pretty sure they were 13s when they came off, but the ones that I've got for free from a friend of mine, and they happen to be 12mm, but they still fit on the stud, no problem. So I'm all good with that. Alright, so I'm going to continue putting the short pipes on, and then this thing, which I have to admit, if you shake it around, it's in reasonable condition. I have to, it is for the original exhaust. But if you shake it around, well, I think it's the original exhaust. But I've given it a nice coat of heat protection. This is what you'd use on a potbelly stove, the paint that I've used on this. It's not good for your headers directly. So for these pipes and the actual headers coming off, they generate a lot more heat than what this does. This will peel if you put it on those, but for your exhaust, and I've been using it for years for the underneath of this exhaust and the tailpipes, and it doesn't peel, and it won't peel on your pipes here. But don't put it on your headers. Use proper header paint for your headers, because it will peel off them and it'll flake. Won't look good. But for this one, not an issue. But I did notice, like I was saying, if you shake this around, it's a little bit crunchy on the inside, but I'm really not stressed about it. It doesn't leak, it's working well, and I'm probably going to eventually replace this in the next, well, let's say foreseeable future. I would say I'd definitely be looking at replacing it in the next 5 years, but I think it's going to be fine. Like I said, I do 3,000 kilometres, 3,500 kilometres a year in this car, so I dare say that this exhaust will last me a little while longer. Never sees rain. So anyhow, I'm going to get onto these pipes and so on and finish off this exhaust, because I am starting to get exhausted myself. Nice weather here today in Perth. The weather's pretty good. Sunny skies, about 25 degrees. So our very hot 35-degree days have seemed to have eased. So yeah, nice day. So it's good weather for it. But anyhow, I shall continue. Okay, I've affixed the short pipes to it. Just be careful when you're doing up your flanges there. I don't know if you can see in that one, just above my fingernail now on my index finger. You can see there's an anomaly on that silver ring in the middle. That's a crack. It's a slight crack. I've obviously done that up a little bit too tight. I didn't notice that. I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. I might put a bit of glue on it, but I don't think it'll be too much of an issue. I do have a spare one of those rings. Don't really want to change it, but I'll see how it goes. I don't think it's like a crack all the way through, because they're quite a fibrous kind of thing. They're quite soft, so they're designed to crush, but I think I might have crushed that one just a little bit too much. But anyway, the short pipes are in. I'm just presenting this up. I'm sitting it on a box at the moment. I'm just trying to get it close, because I'm going to hook it up here, and then I'm going to hook it up on the other side, and then connect up here, because I think it's going to need a little bit of manipulation. So I'm hoping there's a little bit of play in it, in this area here, to be able to, sort of make up. I think that's kind of part of the design, to try and get it to sit on here nice and square. So you just pull that pin out like I did, you pull that out, and obviously that's going to come up. That bit there is going to sit between there, pin back through, so the pin will go through there, hopefully. There's a little bit of paint on the inside of that now, so it's a little bit tight, but I'll just tap that through. There you go. It's just that little bit of paint in there. And then of course you'll pin it through. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to stick that on. I'll just try and get the camera in a bit closer. I'll hook up one side, and then the other side should be a lot easier. So just bringing it up, tilting it. It's a little bit awkward. You can probably tell these aren't light. So I'll just put the pin in there just to rest it. So it's just a bit of manipulation. It's sitting up on a cardboard box, so I can shake it around quite a bit and I'm not doing any damage to it. It's just not quite square. So I'll grab a little hammer. Just a baby. These are some very, very light taps. Don't worry about little bits of paint flecking off. I can't see because I've got the camera. Here's my pin. Doesn't necessarily matter which way the pin goes in. Oh, it's quite tight, isn't it? There we go. Okay, so now I've got it there. I'm going to tap it until it's through. Put my pin through. And bend it over. Bring it right around that so it's nice and neat. Alright, and then it's the same thing for the other side, which I'm not going to film because you might hear me swear. So I'll get back to you when I've got that done. Okay, exhaust is fitted and all buttoned up. So you can see here it's got new bolts through it, new nuts, new washers, and brand new sealing rings as well. When doing up your sealing rings, like I say, be careful not to crush them. What you want to do is try and have it sit as flush as possible, so even, sitting even as possible, and then when you're doing these up, do it up just till it basically is no longer loose. So it's just tight there, then go to the next one, make that one just tight, then go to the next one. So as soon as they stop turning, you know, as soon as there's a bit of tension needed, a bit of torque needed to make them come together, stop, go to the next one, tighten a little bit, that'll probably loosen off these ones, then tighten that one, and tighten that one, and just keep going around, sharing the way you pull it in. So like I said, I've got a spare one of these. So you basically, when you're bringing it in between the two flanges, you're sharing the way you're bringing it in, if that makes any sense. Okay, so you know, you tighten in and it'll go a bit like that, then you tighten it down here. So you're trying to pull it as square as possible. This doesn't necessarily have to be perfectly square, but as long as it's reasonable, because like I said, these things crush pretty easily. If I go like this and find a nice edge there, you see that, and I'm going to put my fingernail there. Now that didn't take a lot of pressure to put that little dent in it there, like that. You can see my two fingernail marks there. That didn't take a lot of pressure, but be careful with these because you can damage them really easily too. So, and yeah, one of mine had a bit of a crack in it, so I think it'll be fine. But yeah, I've got the spare one anyway, so just in case. Nothing wrong with having a spare here or there of something. Anyhow, that ends that part. So I'm rather excited now because I'm pretty much looking at just going over the engine now, just double checking I don't have any tools or anything lying around anywhere, like a spanner stuck in a cam belt or something like that, because I am literally ready to turn it over and give it a start. Now obviously I don't expect it just to start straight up. The metering unit's probably empty, so it's going to need to pump some fuel into there first, so I'll probably turn the ignition on, get the fuel pump running, get some fuel up into the metering unit, and go from there. So you never know, and hopefully he doesn't scream or something with a stuck throttle or something like that. But little things to check, you know, make sure your throttle's not going to be stuck open, because that wouldn't be good to take it to 10,000 revs. If it's running a bit rough, obviously check all the spark plugs. Yeah, check all the leads, because if you've watched my video on replacing spark plug leads, the system they use for putting the spark plug leads into the distributor cap, in my opinion, is got knobs on it. I really don't like it. So you can pull them out really easily. When I was putting this one back on a little while ago, I was lucky I checked, but I'd pulled this out here from the coil, and I'd actually left the metal inside there. So it was only because I was double checking stuff that I found that, because if I went to start it, that probably would have been a bit of an issue. So I had to take that lead off and reaffix the metal part onto the lead. So that would have been a problem starting the car. It may have started in one bank, but one bank might not have run properly. So if you feel you've got a miss or something like that, go here first. Yeah, check all your leads. Yeah, make sure they're all plugged in properly. They're sitting right. Make sure your extensions are sitting right onto your plugs. If you still you've checked all 8 plugs and you still have a problem, then it's what you can do. If you feel like you've got a miss, just remove a plug with the car running, and you should notice a change. When you get to the plug that you notice no change in the way the engine's running, that's a good indication of that's the plug that's causing you, or the lead that's causing you the problem. And then it'd be a matter of just tracing it back, rather than trying to remove both distributor caps and sort of guess. That's the best way. And just be careful taking these off when the car's running. It will give you a boot. I've had a few of those in my time. So probably a good idea to, when you're taking it off, to use some pretty thick rubber gloves, or even something that you can gently grab this with, a pair of pliers with some foam or something on them, just to protect your leads, because these are not cheap either. So anyway, the next thing to do is I'm going to just look it over for 10 minutes and just look at each pipe, each little detail. Make sure, like I said, with the turning parts, there's nothing near the turning parts, and then I'm going to start it up. Exciting. Hasn't started. This engine has not been on since October 2019, and it is currently the 31st of March, so quite a while. Not all of that has been this. I may have mentioned in an earlier video that I had broken my ankle in November, so the car was sitting for a couple of months while I was healing, and then when I was able to walk, that's when I found my leak, and then decided, well, what a great time to do some serious maintenance on it. Anyhow, hopefully next video, or the next shot you'll see, is this engine starting. Cheers. Okay, I've had a good look around. I'm pretty satisfied. I'm ready for a start. So I've reconnected the battery, should I say turn the battery isolator switch over to on. I've taken the cap off here, and there was quite a considerable amount of gurgling going on, which is good because that's what I wanted. A bit of air has come out of here, and also if I come around here, this one just there on top of the thermostat housing, that brass one there, I'm going to undo that now, and with the engine off, and just see if any air comes out. Now on yours, possibly it's a solid screw, okay, solid bolt. Won't be very long, it's only be about that long, about a centimetre long. However, mine is not solid, it has 2 holes in it. The reason being is I turned it into a bleed nut. or bolt, rather than have it. If I can quickly just show you what I mean by that. So I took it out when I took it out, because I'll tell you one thing, if you pull that out, normally you're pulling it out when it's hot, it will burn you and you'll have a nightmare on your hands. So what I've done is I got a 2mm, I think it was a 2mm, 1mm, 2mm drill bit, and I drilled a hole like that into there. Sorry, I'm looking through the camera doing this. I shouldn't. Okay, and then I've drilled one on the side as well. So it's got a little bleed nipple. So the fluid can come through here and then out there. So I only have to screw it out that far from the thermostat housing. Okay, so that's the thermostat there, and I bring it out. So I only have to bring it out till that hole there. Let's fluid out, and we'll let the air out obviously before the fluid. Okay, cheers. Okay, 13mm socket. This is just to let undo this. You need a universal joint for this, or a small socket set. I'm just undoing that, and I'm not going to screw it out the whole way. I'm just going to undo it until, or if air comes out. Obviously none of the system's under pressure. I'm getting fluid coming out, just that tiny bit. I will still need to bleed that when I have the car started. It's got a copper washer, crush washer in it, so it just needs to be tweaked. And then of course, if you've bled anything, or if you've let any fluids out into there, it's very good practice to wipe those fluids up. Otherwise it can cause confusion. When you go to start the car, you think, oh no, that just started, or was that already there? So just make sure you wipe any fluids up, so then you can eliminate the thought of something dripping. I was surprised how much came out actually. Ooh, a lot more than I thought. I'm really not a big fan of coolant sitting on my cam belts. I don't think I have any on my cam belts. They're dry, but yeah, it's not something I like. I don't like anything on my cam belts. Okay, now I'm just going to put the cap back onto the header tank. Reposition the camera so it's in the middle again, so we get that middle shot. There we go. Got the majority of the engine there. Camera's sitting up on the roof. Okay, so now cap back on the header tank. Fire extinguisher handy. I've got one sitting on the boot here, just here, ready to go with a pair of pliers to cut that tag off. Okay, the zip tie off, just in case. Okay, it's an insurance policy, and I have a second insurance policy just on the lawn, about 2 meters away from the car, just in case something goes on and I cannot get to this particular extinguisher, which is literally there at arm's reach, with a pair of pliers sitting right next to it, ready to go. Don't ever mess around with your fuel lines and your fuel and all that sort of stuff and start your car up without a fire extinguisher ready. You're nuts if you do, especially in a Ferrari. I'm not expecting anything to be leaking, but if I do, it's going to be, you know, probably coming from these areas here, or maybe at the top here. So if you do have a little leak, turn it off straight away. You don't want the leak. If your injectors leak, they're not going to drip straight down onto your headers, and your headers, you know, straight away aren't going to heat up like instantly, super hot. So as soon as I've started the car and it's running, I'm going to hop out of that driver's seat ASAP and get down to here and start looking for leaks, start looking for fuel leaks, oil leaks, that kind of stuff. Hopefully I don't see any, but from my experience, yeah, you often can come across one or two here and there. It's just the way it is. I'm expecting a bit of smoke to come out from here, a little bit here and there. That's going to be normal. There's a lot of grease, you know, has been moved around, especially in this back header, which hasn't come off the car. It's probably been touched a few times. It's probably got a bit of grease on it or a bit of oil on it somewhere here and there. So I'm expecting a little bit of smoke. Smoke is not something I'm going to be too concerned about. It will eventually burn off. And obviously I'm going to do a full clean of the engine once I'm happy that everything's fine, it's all running well, everything's sweet. Then I'll do a degrease of the engine, and I don't really like to pressure clean it, because pressure cleaners on engines, yeah, I'm not saying don't do it, but I tend not to do it. I tend to try and keep them clean as I go, so when I do a clean, it's relatively easy. I mean, the engine, as you can see, maybe you can tell in the video, the engine's pretty clean anyway. I'm a bit finicky with that side of it. It is a Ferrari after all. Anyhow, I'm going to put the cap back onto the header tank, and I'm going to crank it over, just boom, tick it over just that little bit to make sure that the starter and everything's turning and so on. And then if I feel good about that, I'm going to actually turn it over properly and start it up. I haven't got the belt covers on, the pulleys for the belts for the alternator and so on, that's kind of exposed. I want to be able to see inside there, and I don't have the wheel arches on obviously, because I want no wheels on, because I want to see. I want to be looking underneath, around, on top, all over the engine for any anomalies. And things don't just happen straight away. Sometimes it can be 10-15 minutes before an oil leak starts to show, so you've got to really give it some time. But anyhow, I'll be back to you in a sec, and hopefully you will see the engine crank. Okay, here we go for a start. A bit nervous on this one. Running. A bit of smoke coming up, which is normal. It's got new header paint, so I'm expecting that.
a little while to get the fuel through to it. And my temperature gauge, my water temperature gauge, I believe it is reading 140 degrees. So I think there might be something wrong with the sender or something like that. So I'm going to look into that. But as you can see, that smoke, I was expecting that. It's coming from the back. It's basically the new header paint cooking off. So that's absolutely understandable. That will go away. What I'm concerned about is leaks. So I'm just going to walk around the car, have a look underneath and look for some leaks. Look around and I'll come back to you.
So it's been about 10 minutes now, and I'm not finding any leaks, water, oils, any kind of fluids. It's really good. The smoke's still coming out a little bit from here. It's definitely the headers. You can see the headers cooking off down there. That's where the smoke's coming from. You can see them cooking off. That's pretty normal. That's just going to stop. There was the spot down there where my torch is. That's the area that was leaking that started this whole saga. There's that black line you can see right in the middle there, just above my fingernail. So there it is. That's where it was leaking from. And I'm getting absolutely no leaks from anywhere down there or anywhere that I can see. So we're looking pretty good. I've just bled the coolant. I've got fluid coming through all the pipes. Just very carefully, there's a way you can check, like put your hand on that pipe there, just touch it. It should be warm, should be hot. Be careful. So I've opened this one again down here, cracked that, let a little bit of air out, not a lot. Closed it up, came down here, and my radiator wasn't hot, which I want it to be a bit warm to the touch, because yeah, so I want the water. Also, this pipe here is a good one to check for your return and so on, and that one down there. Okay, if they're warm, I've bled this from there, that little bleed screw there, right there. Sorry, light's really bad here. I've got lights off at the moment. So that bleed screw, that's why that's hissing a little bit there. That's just steam, and it's just from the overflow of, you can see a little bit of the coolant in there. Okay, that's just a little bit of the overflow of the coolant, because it drips down onto the radiators. You can see it down there between the fan blades. Drips down there, and then when it gets warm, because it goes between that little crack there between the cowling and the actual radiator, and then as the radiator gets warm, it steams off. So that's just steam, even though it almost looks like smoke, but that's just steam. So a bit of air came out of this one, so that's good. Now remember, I didn't change my fluid, so I didn't expect there to be a lot of air in it. I only drained what I needed to from the pipes in the rear of the engine. So you can see the smoke's really settled down now. There's still a little bit. You might not be able to see it on camera, but I can see it just slightly. A little bit coming up here. Not coming from any other area, but from here is a really good sign. It's what I expected. It's what I hoped for. There's no fuel leaks. I've had a good look. All the pipes and the lines are dry. Down near the metering unit and so on. Just be very careful moving your hand around, touching things. Things are going to be hot, and there's some real nasty stuff down here that can grab a finger and just tear it straight off. So just be really careful when you're doing what I'm doing here, just going around. So I haven't even revved it. You've heard the only revving that I've done of the car. I've been letting it sit, and it sounds pretty good. I'm going to give it a couple of revs now because the temperature has come up to about 80 degrees C at the moment. I'm going to have to suss out the sender unit for my oil temperature. I've got great oil pressure, but my oil temperature is on 140, and let's face it, it's not. So I think my sender unit, I might have either wired it back up wrong, or I've done something to it. It's not a big deal. That's going to be a fairly easy fix. So let's give, sorry guys, my camera died then. Okay, so I'm going to give it some herbs. Let's see what happens. He's up the temperature. Bit of smoke. Bit less that time. It's expected. It's idling a little bit high. It's idling about 1100. Should be around 1000, but it's not out of, it's not the end of the world. It'll probably drop down when I go for a drive, which won't be obviously today. It's about 4:30, nearly 5 o'clock in the afternoon here now. But all in all, I think we're looking, I don't want to get too cocky, but I think we're looking pretty good here. Sounds pretty good. There's no mist that I can tell, but sometimes you can't find a mist until you're actually on the road and you put it under load. But it doesn't sound like a mist to me. But anyhow, if there's anything else that's a drama, I'll come back and show you. But otherwise, I'm pretty confident with that one. Success. Cross fingers. Cheers.